Let's select a cube and scale it down in z-axis. So we'll be selecting the edge, the corner edges, just like this, and we're going to bevel it. Control B to bevel it, and let's select the top plane right now, and I to inset, and E to extrude downwards. Now let's give loop cuts by pressing Control R. So we'll be giving loop cuts to the sides. Okay, select the edge and give loop cuts, just 3 loop cuts on the side, right at the center. So Control R and 3 loop cuts here by rolling the mouse wheel up. Same 3 loop cuts we can give to all the 4 sides. So Control R and roll the mouse wheel just 3 times gently. So we'll have 3 loop cuts. So once we have all the 3 loop cuts on all the 4 sides, we can bevel them. So it's best to select all the loop cuts and then give the bevel and then do the extrusion, not one by one, because one by one the effect will be different. It might be different. So just select all the loop cuts by pressing Alt, okay, just the side loop cuts, and then you do Control B to bevel. So all the bevel will have same effect. Then you can do extrude along the normals. So just like this. So as you can see, it's uniform throughout. So that's the idea. Now we can select the top faces of all these 4, okay, just like this by pressing shift. You have to press shift. I hope you know that. Then extrude it little bit upwards in Z direction just to give it little more effect. So this is okay. Now we can add a UV sphere basically, or an icosphere. I think UV sphere will be better. So scale it down. Okay. Now we can just adjust it. We can position it in a way so that we can delete half of the UV sphere. So let's go to wireframe mode and just select it. Oh, we are in edit mode now. So I selected half of the UV sphere and I'm going to delete it. So since see-through was not on, let's on the see-through as well. And now let's delete half of the sphere vertices. Now that is okay. Now we'll go back to the object mode and we can just select this thing, select the vertex and just press Ctrl plus. So this is what we want, and we can just with G and Z we can move it down. This time we are not doing the extrusion, we are just moving it down. Now let's select the entire ring by pressing Alt and the entire plane, and this also by pressing Shift Alt and the planes. Now we can do extrude along normals, just a little bit, not much, and I to inset and E to extrude along the normals again inside. So we'll have this effect. We can select this thing, I mean the half sphere, and we just need to position it on our plate that we have created earlier. So I'm just moving it. So this is a game of positioning now, so nothing much. So let me just put it in the corner and scale it up. I can do Shift D right here, and I'm going to select both of these and Shift D on the x-axis right there. And after selecting all the 4 of them, I can move them down with GZ and just place them gently on the, I can even use the snapping tool. So this looks good, and we'll go back to the edit mode. We can do something with the plane as well. So select this plane, I to inset just a little bit so that it don't affect the geometry, and we can just gently do the extrusion upwards and bevel them. No, let's not bevel it. It's looking good anyways. So if we go back to the object mode, you can see such a nice panel we are getting. We can select everything and we can scale this spheres, and this is looking really nice. We can select everything and we can do Control J to join, and we can also do shade smooth, and after clicking the auto in the normals it is looking okay. Anyway, it is looking better. We don't need to do auto smooth, but still, like we can select everything and we can do Control J just to give them a little bit of finishing. This is looking good, and we have not done anything very complex, just basic stuff, and we got this. Let's select the cylinder, scale it down in z-axis, then go back to object mode. We'll select the top and bottom faces. We'll do I to inset, right click, loop tools, and loft. So anyway the internal planes are selected, we'll do I to inset, individual inset, just a little bit, and then we can we can extrude them along the normals. So we'll just pull the handle and we'll have extrusion. We can scale them down all at once. If you want, we can actually do the beveling, but it is completely not necessary. It's up to you. So it's optional. If you want, you can do the beveling, and so this is a sort of ring that we can create. Let's add a cylinder now. Go back to edit mode, and with Control R, we are going to give two loop cuts. Two is enough, and we'll just move them in the center. Anyway, it's in center. Then we can do Control B to bevel. So just a single segment is good enough, I think. And we'll just move it like this. So now we'll do extrude along the normals inside. Select the handle and pull it gently so that it will extrude along the normals inside. Okay, so this is exactly what we want. So as you see, this is the effect we wanted. Now we can even give one loop cuts at the center, and we can do Control B, this time a little bigger loop cut, and extrude along the normal like this. And we can give multiple loop cuts at the top, let's say 5-6 loop cuts. Control B to bevel, and this time we are going to do extrude along normal, but gently, very gently, just little bit. But this time we are going to give it outside, so it will look like a screw, the threads of a screw. Okay, so just with 2-3 methods we are able to create so much stuff in a cylinder. We can even select the top face. We can do I to inset, E to extrude downwards. Okay, if you want, you can do shade smooth and object mode. So let's go to right click and shade smooth. So you can see this bobbly effect. We'll select the auto under the normals here, and it is smoothen out. So with this, just wanted to show you that beveling the loop cuts is a good idea to use. Let's add a cube, scale it down in z-axis to make it a plate sort of thing. We'll scale it in x-axis. Now let's go back to edit mode, and we are going to select loop cuts, this time just a single one. That's why I'm selecting it from here. So a single loop cut, and I'm going to select this plane, and if I insert it, it's not uniform because obviously it is scaled more in x-axis. So we'll just go back to object mode. So you can see it clearly, it's not scaling it properly. So go back to object mode, Control A and scale. So now if you do it, the insert will happen in a uniform manner. Let's subdivide this plane just once, and we'll do insert, I to insert, individual insert, and E to extrude downwards just a little bit. Okay, just like this. And we'll select the plane, the bottom plane, and E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude, and this looks good. Now this edge looks very sharp, so let's bevel it. So we'll select the edge, press shift and alt. So if you do that, we can just select the entire edge. We'll do Control B. We can roll the mouse wheel up and down. I think single bevel is fine, so this is good. Now let's add a cylinder. We'll add a cylinder here, and we'll scale it down in z-axis just like this. So this will be some sort of a covering, or a top cover, so as to say. We'll just move it down in z-axis, and we'll scale it down also. Let's move it somewhere here, and this is okay. So we'll select the top plane, I to inset, E to extrude little bit upwards just like this, and then we can scale it down just a little bit, and I to inset, again just a little bit of inset, and E to extrude downwards, again I to insert, and we can rotate this plane. So R, Z, and you can just randomly give some value, 10 degrees or 20 degrees, so you'll have this effect. Now I'm selecting two edges and shift control plus, so I'll continue pressing plus plus plus, shift control plus, and I can select all the edges. Now I can just Control B. Basically I'm just beveling it just a little bit, not much, and I can extrude it upwards just a little bit, not too much, just a little bit, so that we'll have this effect of blade sort of effect. It will look like some sort of exhaust or something. Okay, so make sure the beveling is not too much so that it doesn't affect the geometry in a way. Okay, so just a little bit, and even extrusion should be just a little bit. Okay, So this is the effect we are getting. We can select the center plane that we had and we can extrude it again. So let's just select it and let's I to insert and E to extrude like this. Again, Control B. This is fine, I guess. Or we can just do I to insert and E to extrude downwards just a little bit. So both the cases is fine. Okay, we just want to give a fan sort of effect. We could also choose alternate edges and we can do that, but this is okay. So let's move further. We can just do Shift D to this plane and I'm going to scale it down. Let me scale it down even further and I'm just placing it somewhere at the corner, somewhere right here at the corner, and this is okay. I am extruding it just a little bit. Okay, scaling it down and I'm going to select it with L and I'm going to do Shift D. I'm copying it basically and I'm going to select it with L again and Shift D to the right side. So this is good, and let me just move this fan thing to the center. Now this is looking like a proper sci-fi panel or even the mechanical sort of panel. Okay, let's add a cylinder. We're going to rotate it in x-axis. Okay, scaling it in x-axis again, and basically we're trying to make a pipe. Okay, and we'll be using spin tool. So we need to select the face, top face, and we'll be using spin tool like I said. Just grabbing this white handle and if I rotate it, it is of no use because the center is our 3D cursor. So one thing is we need to position our 3D cursor in a right place. So shift and press right click wherever you want to place the 3D cursor. Okay. And now if I just pull the green handle, you can see it is rotating in a beautiful manner now, not like the previous one. So spin tool has only one thing. We need to know how to position our 3D cursor. Okay. So again, if I rotate it, it will rotate it something like this. So you just need to place 3D cursor at a position where you want it to be act as a center. So that's all. And so let me just go to the front view, and if I rotate it by pressing control, this will blink at 90 degree. Okay, so if you just press control, it will blink at every 90 degrees. So you'll know actually when it will automatically stop at 90 degrees. This is something you will feel once you actually do it. Okay, so now I'm going to place my 3D cursor at this position. So shift and right click. Now there is a distance. Okay, and now if I rotate it, you can clearly see how our 3D cursor is acting as a center. So it's all up to you. Like you can change the distance from the object if you want a circle like this or a rotation like this. Previously our 3D cursor was very close to the object, that's why it took the previous turn, but this time the value of radius was much more than the previous one. And now again we can just come back to our basic operations like extrude, scaling down just like this, again extruding and scaling it up and extruding. Okay, so we can either do that, we can directly do I to insert as well. Okay, so I to insert, E to extrude, again E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude. So basically the whole point of this exercise is to teach you how spin tool is going to work. Okay, and it's going to be working like for your advantage. uh, See how easily we can create pipe sort of things and even cables and cylindrical things that need rotation. So far we have been doing very simple operations, so now we can do that, and on top of that we can just duplicate it. Okay, we can scale it down, we can rotate it, and we can just use the combination of these two. We can actually assemble it to with some other object. Okay, we can make it like we can add it to some sort of machine to make it look more cool, and we can just like create a sort of thing where this is coming out of some machine or some exhaust sort of system. So let's just see, we can directly join it, and if you want to just make this particular pipe to jump over the bigger pipe, we can use the spin tool again. All we need to do is we need to position the spin tool correctly. So in this case we can even if you want, we can hide this the bigger pipe just to just for a moment, so that we can actually model the smaller pipe so that it will just jump from its position. I'll tell you what I mean. So let me just hide it. I'm going to select the bigger pipe and I'm going to hide it by pressing H. So it's gone now. And now I'm just going to go with the front view and I'm going to position this 3D cursor here. And now let me just rotate it. Okay, I'm going to use the spin tool and I'm going to use the green handle, red handle, and this is how I'm going to rotate it. And now if I bring back my pipe, the bigger pipe, with Alt H, let me just do it once more. Just at a 90-degree, it's fine. I think let me just go back. And by the way, we can change the segments from here. From top, we can change the segments and we can change the axis directly. So just in case if you are wondering how to change it, so once again let me just do it again, and just at 90-degree it will stop if I press control. And it's like very intuitive, you can just judge also. So just in this case I know that it will go up, and with Alt H if I bring back my previous pipe, you can see that. So this is what I meant previously when I said if I want to make the smaller pipe to jump over the next pipe, because in sci-fi stuffs we'll see this sort of thing where one pipe is crossing or going through the other pipe, and now we can see extrude it very nicely. So this is where spin tool will come to a rescue, and now we can go back to our modeling. Shift T, right click, and then scaling it, and if I place it just somewhere here I can extrude it, and if I press L over it I can just duplicate it, and with Shift R I can add more, you know, looks to this thing, more fins, so as to say in mechanical terms. So this is one thing. Again I can just select this plane, Shift T, right click, scale it. Again I can do the same thing, moving it back. Let me extrude it, and Shift D, just moving it, and Shift R, I'm going to add more fins. So this is something which you can play with pipes and all, anything that is cylindrical in nature, and cables and pipes sort of things. So this is another modeling technique that, along with all the other techniques that we have seen, extrusion and everything, this will work like a magic. Okay, so again I'm just simply extruding it, Shift A, right click, again scaling it up, and E to extrude. So now you can play with the size of pipes, and you can even add few more features to make it look like a machine. So in this case I'm going to do E to extrude again, and S to scale, again E to extrude. So this particular object I'm going to select alternate planes over it, and I'm going to we can do I to inset, I guess, just a little bit, I to inset, and extrude along normals, just like this. So now as you can see, this particular object is looking like a machine through which pipes are going. So in sci-fi terms it will look really nice. And so this is what I meant when I said that we'll be using just few tools and we'll be making few objects. Well, not few objects, we have made a lot of objects just with few tools. And I'm just going to add a cube directly. Okay, I'm not going to add cube and scaling it down. So this is one thing, that while adding you can add cylinder and cubes like this. Let me just select the corner edges of this, and let me bevel it just a little bit. I can just roll my mouse wheels up or down if I want. Let me just, okay, one single, I think one segment is good. And let me give Control R, loop cuts. I guess 2 loop cuts or 3 loop cuts is fine. Let me select this loop cuts and Control B to bevel, single bevel. And now again I'm going to do I to inset, individual inset, and extruding along the normals. Again I'm creating one more machine sort of thing, which is looking different from the pipes, but it is acting as a complementary object when I'm using pipes. So this is a cubical object and I'm using along with a cylindrical object, so it is definitely looking like a sci-fi stuff. And right now I'm just positioning it. So that's all. So once you create something, you just need to position it in a right way, not just right way, correct way, so that it is aligned with other objects. So this is all. Let's go back to object mode, and this is looking really nice. So we have seen a lot of stuff. We can again just duplicate this stuff, we can rotate it, we can scale it. Okay, so it's sci-fi has this flexibility that we can just select few objects, we can change its size, we can rotate it, and we can create a lot of stuff just with few objects. So if you just keep practicing this itself, you'll gain a lot of skill, modeling skill, so as to say. And look at that, how nicely it is looking. Just a combination of few stuff and arranging and aligning few things, and we were just able to do it with a single cylinder and few cubical objects. We can add few more objects to it. So I'm just selecting the corner edges. So beveling it just a little bit, and so one edge is left, so we need to select it. You need to make sure that your shift is, you press the shift while doing this, and you can just bevel it. Okay, so you can just add this somewhere in the pipe. So this is something you need to do. You need to use the combination of cylinder and cube, just not make it everything cylinder. Okay, so this is one thing you need to know. Let's add a cylinder now, and let's change it vertices to, let's say, 80. We're going to make a really smooth object this time. Let's scale it down in z-axis, and we'll select the top face. Let's do E to extrude and S to scale just a little bit. Okay, then we can again E to extrude upwards. This time let's try to bevel it now. So looks like beveling is not happening. We'll try one more time. We'll select the edge this time. Let's select the entire edge and try to bevel it. Okay, so it's not uniform. Basically our product is not, basically our object is not uniformly scaled. So let's go with inset. So I to inset, E to extrude downwards. Okay, just like this, just a little bit, and again I to inset and E to extrude upwards. If you go back to object mode, you can see that it is looking really smooth and it's looking really sharp. So that's the magic. If you use a high poly object, that's what you're gonna get. So right now I'm just selecting this two plane. uh, I think two is enough, and I'm going to extrude it a little bit and scale it down. Let me scale it down, and again if I just extrude it, it will just touch the boundary. Okay, now the thing is I cannot duplicate it, so it's best that let's go back. Let's do shift D. Let's select these planes. Let's do shift D and right click, and now it's separated now. So now if I do extrude, scale it down, and E to extrude again. So let me just scale it down even further, and then I can do extrude. So if I hover my mouse over it and if I press L, now it's selected. Now there are two, three things that we can do, but the best thing would be to use our spin tool. As always, we can just rotate this blue handle and it's automatically adjusted. From here we can change the number of steps and number of angles. So let me just put number of angles as 360. As you can see, it is uniformly distributed. Okay, it's looking so nice now. Again, we'll go back to edit mode now. So let's do something at the center. Let me select the, or let's add a cube now. Let's add few more elements before doing that. I'm scaling the cube down in z-axis. Let me grab it up. So basically this will be a plate, a simple plate. Let me scale it up now. Okay, like this. So this is okay. Now let's go back to edit mode. Select the plane, I to inset, and E to extrude downwards. And I think this is okay. Let's add few more elements. Let's add a cylinder now, and again we need to scale it down, scale it in z-axis and bring it up, so just a little bit, and we can even further scale it down. I guess this much is enough. Now if you want, you can use the snapping tool. If you just want to place it on the surface, we can just go to the snapping tool and click on face, and we can select here as center, snap with center. So wherever we go, it will automatically get snapped at the center, so you don't have to worry about moving it up or down. So for now, let me just duplicate this thing. Snapping is off now. Or let me just edit this small thing. I to insert, E to extrude. Okay, just a little bit, not much. And now I can do shift D, I guess. Shift D like this. And let me select both of these and do shift D on the other side, just like this. So basically I'm just adding little elements, just a combination of a cylinder and cube, and just using few basic tools of modeling. Select this plane, shift D, right click and scale it down just like this. Extrude it, scale it down. So let's just duplicate this center thing. I'm going to do shift D, and I'm going to just place it somewhere here, and I'm going to scale it down in x-axis and just move it down just a little bit with G and Z. Okay, let me just arrange it in a way that it won't look odd. I can even further move it up. So this is not extrusion, this is just moving it up. Okay, so I have this element. I'm going to select it with L and I'm going to rotate it just like this in spin tool. Okay, but I don't need these many, I just need 4 of them I guess, and angle should be 360. So one is overlapping and rest of the 4 is nicely placed, so that is fine. Now there are so many elements on the entire panel and you can just experiment with this. Okay, let's just insert this circle and let's extrude it downwards just a little bit. So my point is you can always experiment with such things. Okay, you can add elements, you can subtract elements, you can edit elements. Let me select everything, and if I do shade smooth, I have to select the auto under the normals here. You don't have to, it's not necessary, especially in this case because it is looking really sharp and nice. So my point was you can add element. Okay, feel free to add element, feel free to experiment with them, and just just experiment, just add and subtract elements. Okay, there is nothing wrong or right in this thing. So especially when you are beginning, you should definitely try and add elements and see what works for you. Okay, so this is one more panel that is ready now. I think we'll be using it. Let's quickly add a cylinder now with vertices 80 like we did before, and again we'll be using, let's first scale it down in z-axis. So basically we'll be adding elements to it like we did before, but this will be different. Let's select the entire plane, scale it down. Okay, not extrusion, just scale it down directly so we'll have the shape. One loop cut I have added, I can actually scale the entire loop cut to get this sort of shape. Okay, so you can actually scale the loop cut. Okay, let me bevel it now. So if I bevel it and if I increase the number of loops by rolling my mouse wheel up, you can have this sort of smooth shape, bobbly shape. Okay, let's now select the top face. We'll insert it just a little bit and extrude it down. Let's insert it just a little bit and extrude it little bit upwards, just a little bit. Again I to insert and E to extrude downwards, and again I to insert and E to extrude downwards again. So this is going like a very detailed kind of thing. Again I to insert and E to extrude somewhere here, and I to insert and stop it somewhere there. We can extrude it upwards. Okay, somewhere here, just a little bit, not much, and then we can actually scale it something like this. Okay, so again I to insert, E to extrude downwards, I to insert and E to extrude downwards even further. So this looks good, and now let's add one more element. So this is looking really nice. Okay, let's add a cylinder, but we'll reduce its vertices to, let's say, 6, or let's go with 8. 8 looks good. Okay, so and we can, this is good. Now let's scale it down and scale it even further down, so somewhere like this. We can move it even downwards with GZ, or we can scale it. Okay, in the wireframe mode, as you can see, we can scale it just a little bit and we can move it down. Okay, now let's go back to edit mode and go back to planes. We'll select the planes, the entire ring, I to insert, individual I to insert, and not much, we have to be very careful in this case. Extrude along normals. Let's pull the trigger, and this is it. This is what we are looking for. Although we can still, if you want, you can increase the size of these blades. So for that you need to change the shape of the inset at that time itself, but it's fine. Okay, right now it's fine. Let's add loop cuts from the center just like this. We can scale them or we can adjust them. If we do control B, okay, not much, just a little bit, so we'll have this effect. And if we do E to extrude downwards, we'll have this gap sort of effect. Okay, something like this. So this is one of the effect I just wanted to show you, because we'll be using it a lot during our planes and other panels. So this is it. So just select the loop cuts, bevel them, and just use the extrusion. That we have been doing it for so long, but uh, it is looking really nice now. So again, I'm just putting just a little bit of extrusion at the center just to give it a different sort of effect. But the point is, like in the previous panel, just feel free to add other elements. Okay, feel free to join them and feel free to edit them. So in the last two elements we have been doing this, and let's go back to edit mode, and but this time let's apply auto mirror in y-axis, or in fact in x-axis. Let's apply it in x-axis, and from here I'm just going to select few planes. So with box selection I'm just going to select, it's going off, so this is not it. Let's go back, just select from the center. Okay, so shift D, right click, and if I just extrude it outside just a little bit like this, and if I, let's say if I scale it down, I think this is good. I can even do further changes, but as you can see it's happening in the opposite direction. It is giving a good effect, so as to say, because the small elements that is coming out is looking good. So if you want to do it again in the other direction, just give auto mirror in y direction, and again just the same procedure. We'll select the planes, shift D, right click, extrude them just a little bit, and we can scale it down just a little bit. Okay, so anyway the opposite side is happening. So use auto mirror, use other elements, and use these type of small techniques to achieve our result. Okay, modeling is not that difficult. You just need to use your brains in such a way that we can break big concept into small concept. That's all we have been doing it right now. Okay, now let's join them everything with Control J. If you want, you can give shade smooth, but I think in this case you definitely don't need shade smooth. But now I'm confident that if you have been practicing with me all these panels, I think you must have gained a lot of experience now. We'll be using all of these planes in our upcoming projects, especially the sci-fi planes that we are going to make. So let's see you next time.